Who's this? Oh, you're an entrepreneur? Oh, you're a real estate investor. Oh, you're trying to learn from those who did it. Well, come into the lab then. Put your white coat on, gloves on, notepad, and let's build, y'all. Real estate experiment. What is happening, y'all? Today we have my man Tyler Hall. Did I get that correctly, Tyler?
Yeah, man.
Based out of what? Based out of Maine?
Based out of Portland area. Yep. In Maine. Yep.
Of course, we connected online. That's where I you'd be surprised, man. This online thing, I think people are taking it for granted. I always meet such genuine individuals like yourself come on the show, and we're ready to chop it up and talk about, you know, real estate and life in general. But reason I'm stoked to have you on the show, because, you know, you reached out to me and again, those seems to be one of the best guests I have on the show. There's a connection there, and but this is about you, so I want to hear more about who is Tyler Hall, and you know, who is Tyler Hall before the real estate, and who is Tyler Hall today, because we know you as real estate, but you obviously have had a lot of different businesses in the past, which we're very excited to talk about. So tell the people on a quick little elevator pitch of who the man is.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously he introduced me, and my name's Tyler Hall. You know, I'm from Maine. I'm from Portland area. I grew up in the Gardner area, which is out near the capital of Maine in Augusta, Maine. So I grew up in that area, very interesting area. You know, there's not a lot of high income earners there. And so that's kind of like the mindset that I grew up in, right? I grew up in a lower income family, feeling like money was, you know, not the best thing in the world. I shouldn't achieve for it because money is the devil kind of thing. You know, so I grew up in that mindset. And from a young age, I knew that I didn't want the lifestyle that I was seeing in that area, you know, and I was seeing from, you know, my close family, right? I knew I didn't want that lifestyle. I knew I wasn't made for it. And I knew I wanted to do something significant in my life. And so, you know, that's where I really got started. I had the entrepreneurial mindset, just like a lot of entrepreneurs do, right from the get-go. You know, I was doing a bunch of little things on my own, always loved being by myself, right? So I kind of grew up in that light. And then, you know, in high school is when I really wanted to start making this money, because I was seeing all my other friends doing things that I couldn't do. So I was just like, you know what, no one's going to give it to me. I got to go ahead and get out there and get it for myself. So I started myself a lawn care company called the Precision Packing or Precision Whacking, sorry. Mm-hmm. Lawn care company, and just started going with that. Doing a lot of odd jobs as well, doing a ton of odd jobs. I joke about it with my friends all the time. Like, I've done pretty much anything you can think of for money. You know, I mean, like, pretty much anything, man. I've done a lot of stuff for money, right? And that's just the mindset I was in. I was out there just doing everything and anything I possibly could. Just created a business online on Craigslist. Craigslist was like my go-to. So that's kind of how I started. And so I grew that little business up to over 20 clients. I did really, really well for myself, being a young kid in high school. But, you know, it wasn't everything that I loved. But at the same time, I knew that I needed to go ahead and work hard to get out of my situation, right? I knew I needed to work hard to get out of my environment. And working with my hands and my back was the easiest way to bridge that gap. So even though I knew I could do things with my mind, I wanted to go ahead and work hard and really build a business on that. So I did the lawn care thing. And then it kind of rolled over into moving. I started a moving business. Yes. And I started branding it as college movers. So I was hiring a bunch of younger generation kids. And our slogan was, you know, students just working to pay for college. And so I started that, and, you know, didn't take it very seriously at the beginning, was just doing it for quick cash, and it made a fair amount of money. It paid my way all the way through college. So I did it all the way through college. And then when I got out of college, I applied for a ton of jobs, man. I applied for over 100 jobs, just like everybody else, even though inside of me, I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. Like, I friggin' knew it, you know? So but I was looking around at everybody else. They're all applying for these big jobs, and I didn't have anything to stand on. So I started applying just like everybody else. And then, I got one job offer. I couldn't take it. And so, I just got really frustrated, and I was just like, you know what? This is the moment where I go ahead and fully go in all on myself. And so right after college, that's what I did. I just went all in on that moving company. Just got to work, man, and we grinded it out really hard. And then one thing after another, I gained some capital up and led right into real estate, right? And so that's kind of where I started dipping into real estate. So
What was that?
that's kind of,
So I'm sorry, Tyler, because
yeah,
it
no, go
sounds
ahead.
like a nice transition, but I'm curious. So that, I guess the originally that first job, was it a decision where you decided not to take it, or I'm curious as to where that thought process went
Yeah,
when
so
you said you
with
couldn't.
that one very question, you just opened up a whole can of worms, man. And so, realistically, and this is a huge part of my story and why I'm so driven.
Yeah.
In college, my sophomore year, first time I ever stayed on campus, right? And I had some friends that I was known as the DD guy, so I had some friends ask me to drive them to a party. And on the way back, we actually got in an accident. And as I got in that accident, one of my friends was hanging out the window, throwing chips at another car that we were passing, and he actually ended up passing away. So I was driving that car, right, and we were speeding, and I actually ended up going to prison, man. And so I went for eight months, and so when I got out of there, I came back as a prisoner on college campus. So I was like I was the first prisoner to come on home confinement on a college campus. And so it was kind of interesting on that regard. So like I said, you opened up a whole can of worms. It's a whole other story, right? I got a lot of different stories in me, but yeah, man, that's kind of like, I got out of there and I had a lot to prove. Everything that I stood for kind of came into question, and I was absolutely humiliated with all over the news, and the papers. Like, they just absolutely slammed me. So in that regard, I had a lot to, I didn't have anything. So my back was against the wall, and I had only to go forward, and that's what I did, man. I didn't even have my license when I got out of college. I didn't have a license. I was a Class A felon. I didn't have any money. My parents didn't have any money, right? So I had nothing, man. I started literally from nothing. So kind of like um, an interesting story to go behind all this stuff. I started that moving company with literally nothing. I didn't even have a license. So that's kind of why I couldn't accept that one job. It was a job offer with Liberty Mutual as a claim specialist, and full package, $60,000 a year, pension plan. They gave me a company car, and you had to travel a lot, and I couldn't take that job because I didn't have my license. So that's the whole can of worms. That's why I
Yeah.
couldn't take that job, man. So I
No,
just got super frustrated and started that company.
I'm glad I asked the question, and I'm glad you were
Yeah,
very transparent about it, because I think
absolutely.
there's uh there's again, you gotta, I found like people have to face a certain amount of stress or change in their life for that. I literally was about to say flip the switch, and I didn't even
Yeah,
realize that's literally your motto. That's
yeah, man.
crazy. Like, literally,
Yep,
that's your motto: flip the switch, right? And
absolutely, man.
for those who don't know, that's what Tyler. I got that correctly, right? Flip the switch.
Yeah, man.
And it's funny, we talked a few days ago, but as I was saying it, I didn't even realize I was saying it. But absolutely, man. And I think people need to hear that, because that's powerful. And I
Mm-hmm.
think in for sometimes unfortunate or fortunate situations, and when I hear that, I actually appreciate that a whole lot more, because there's a level of humility there. And so
Yeah, man.
thank you
and
for
and
sharing.
I and I've always come from a place of humility, but that one, that one situation, like, I have no right to judge or no right to think I'm anything special, right? So I've seen a different lifestyle that I never thought I would ever see, man. Like, never thought I would see people around me, my closest friends, never thought I would like be in any situation like that. And so that brought me down to a different level. And even though, to this point, even though I'm going out there and I'm achieving all of these things, right, I still am still at that level of, humility where I don't think I'm anything special. I'll talk to anybody that comes up to me, talk to anybody on the phone, help anybody out. That's just who I am. And that's how I choose to live my life. I still live my life very poorly, even though I make more money than I've ever made. Right. I still choose to live on a lower level of, if you walked into my house, you had to have no idea that I bring in a 7-figure income, right? Mm-hmm. So that's just the way. Even just seeing me walk down the street, you'd have no idea. So that's just the life I choose to live, man. And it comes straight from that humility piece. I've seen a whole different side of life that a lot of people don't get to see, and it's brought me down, and it's taught me a lot about being a human and being a good person. So yeah, I mean, that's where it comes from.
Good for you, man. Good for you. So tell me, because I think these are important things that, we go through moments, we go trials and tribulations, we learn from them, we build. What's the foundation that you build on today? I know we start transitioning. We got into the story of where it was before real estate. Tell me, we talked a little bit about this offline. Tell me how that's transitioning into your current endeavors today. What is it that you mainly do as I would call you an entrepreneur? You're a problem solver. You seek opportunities. So why real estate, and what is it that you're currently doing in real estate right now as we speak?
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I mean, I hate using words that other people use, so I don't
Mm-hmm.
call myself a serial entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
I call myself a serial opportunist. It fits me way better.
I like that.
Because it doesn't matter what the opportunity is, I will look at it. And if it presents itself as a good opportunity, it doesn't matter if it's just a person, right? So I put a lot of my time and effort into people. It doesn't matter if it's a person or a business or whatever, a piece of real estate. I am a serial entrepreneur, opportunist. So that's what I go out there and do. And that's what I set out to do every single day, is just provide value to the world, right? That's genuinely what I'm out here trying to do. And that's why I reach out to you, because I don't have a huge reach, man. And, being in the world without a huge reach, even though I have a message, I'm trying to spread that message like wildfire, because I've seen what it's done for people. And even though I started, so you mentioned flip the switch, and, I started that because I wanted to go ahead and flip that switch within myself, right? That's why I started it. And so I was using this thing for myself this whole time when I first started it. And, when I woke up in the morning, I wanted to go ahead and say, yeah, flip the switch on today and make shit happen, right? And then I started to realize that the more I was posting it online, people were actually digging into it. People actually liked what I was saying. They understood it. They loved the whole idea behind it. And then they started actually, saying it themselves. So, providing that value to people is genuinely what drives me every single day. I don't have, family members, I don't have parents and stuff like that are sitting there I'm trying to make proud. I'm not trying to make anybody proud other than myself. I'm out here today, I'm out here just trying to be a good human being and just provide value to as many people as as I can, that's genuinely what I'm trying to do. That's what I build everything I build on, is just providing that value. So, what happened was, I went through that whole process where I had to turn that job down. I took my moving company very seriously, but the moving company, it was making me really good money. It was making me multiple 6 figures a year, which no one knew because I was still living in my parents' basement. And what I did was I gained up all that equity, right? And I knew I wanted to make a difference. I knew that I wanted to go ahead and gather that money together and provide myself with some financial freedom. Okay, I wanted to have some passive income because I've always aspired to be a motivational speaker, right? And so that's where I have always been trying to get to, is just providing value to people. So, I knew I started to reach around and do some research as, okay, where do the richest people in the world put their money, right? They don't put them in 401ks to get rich. They don't put them, in all of these places that they tell us we should put our money.
Right.
They're putting it in other places that are making them rich. Okay, that their money is making money, and it seems like they're printing it, right? So I started doing that research. Yeah, man. And I started doing that research, and everything I found came into real estate. So, another thing that I always say is I don't believe in nothing's a coincidence. And so I just jumped in, and I knew no one in real estate. I knew nothing about real estate. I just knew that people were making a lot of money in real estate, and and it was a true form of passive income. And that's what I wanted, because I wanted to get that passive income behind me, to feel that structure I've never felt. And then all of a sudden, propel myself to the next level, providing value. And that's the stage I'm on now, right? Still building my empire, but trying to get my knowledge and what I've experienced and providing that value to people. That's what I'm on. And that's why I reached out to you.
That's awesome, man. And I'm gonna get to that in a second, because we like to dive a little deeper into the lab, get a little tactical, man. You know that.
Love it.
So Tyler, tell me, right now, you got into your first, you accumulated capital, you hustled, as an opportunist. I got to correct myself, as an opportunist, and you went out there. You were very humble about it. Still living in your parents' basement. You got into your real estate. What was that first deal? What did it look like? And how has that changed into what you're doing today? Because I know you and I talked offline.
Sure.
I want to make sure we get the full story. So tell me about what it looked like when you took that first capital that you worked so hard to get as an opportunist, and you put that into real estate. What was that process like?
Yeah, so I had that capital, right? And I had an aha moment in my parents' basement. I'm sitting there. I had multiple six figures saved in the bank, and I was looking up at my parents in their basement, and was just like, you know what? That's what they're doing. They're hoarding their money, and I can't hoard my money. So, I did that research. I knew I wanted to get into real estate, and it was really difficult for me, man. It was really difficult for me. I had never had money. And hoarding that money made me feel good about myself, made me feel comfortable. But at the same time, I wanted that financial freedom, and that money was not going to get me financially free. Right? I had no passive income. I had no unearned income, so I knew I needed to get that. So I jumped. I started looking in Maine, right, and I knew I needed to get close to Portland. And because Portland, if no one knows anything about Maine, Portland's like the hub. Okay, the place is booming, right? So I knew I needed to get close to it, and this was back in 2017. So I knew I didn't want to go into Portland, because I didn't know anything about real estate, but what I did know is that the numbers in Portland didn't make sense to me. So I knew I needed to get outside of Portland to find something a little cheaper, but at the same time get very similar rents.
And I want to stop you for a second, Tyler, and just because you're dropping some good gems. When you say it didn't make sense for me, did it not make maybe it sounds like you had enough, but was there a limit like that you had set for yourself, where like you were
No,
not comfortable, or you just actually the numbers didn't make sense?
no, man. And that's the thing, and that's why I
Mhm.
always start out in the beginning is saying that I knew nothing, right?
Mhm.
But I just had my common sense with me.
Mhm.
And so I started looking at these numbers, and I said, okay, well, that's not going to get me the return that I want to get, right? I didn't know anything about a 10 cap. I didn't even know what that meant, right? I didn't know a
Mhm.
10 cap. I didn't know any of this stuff. I didn't know what numbers were supposed to be. I didn't know any of that shit. I
So
just
what were
looked
you
at the
what were you
numbers.
going what were you going by, I guess, because I think it'll be helpful for folks listening to, oh, okay, this is kind of the baseline numbers of understanding real estate that he had. Was it
Yeah.
just like, hey, you talked about return, so you had some level of maybe
Yeah.
understanding of what the return on your money would look like? Is that what it was? Or
Well, what was happening is I
Mhm.
was looking at what the building was bringing in,
Mhm.
obviously. So what the income was versus what I was getting charged for it, and I was looking at those numbers alone. But one thing and this was when I first started, right? Those are the two numbers that I was using, and a lot of numbers just weren't working, right? And then, as I looked at more property, I realized that you're not going to buy a cash flowing property like I want to buy it. You have to make it. And so I started digging into that regard, and I just started looking at other properties that I had looked at before. And I started noticing, and then I started to dig a little deeper into the research and started reaching out to, Section 8. I started reaching out to other people, started doing more research on the rents in the area. And I found that the rents on a couple of these buildings were super low. Um, and so I was like, oh, well, I can go ahead and make the rents higher. And so some of those numbers were working a little better in my favor once I went ahead and tuned those a little bit to tune those rents up. And so one thing that, and again, I do nothing about real estate, guys. Like I literally knew friggin' nothing. And I just knew that when I put my money in, I want a return that's going to bring me financial freedom, right? And so that's what I was basing my every decision on. And I didn't, and I had that aha moment in my parents' basement where I was like, I'm not going to be scared. I have this money. It's useless to me. It's dead money being in the bank. It's literally dead. So if you have money stashed in the bank over anything of what your expenses are, it's dead money. Okay, it's straight up dead. It's not doing anything for you. And so that's what I said to myself. This is dead money. I'm just going to go ahead and put it out in the world. I guarantee it's going to come back. Like I even if it doesn't, I'm still super young, and I know I can go ahead and get it back. So that was my major decision. I finally found a property in Westbrook. It was a three unit, and they were selling it. They had it listed for over 300. I put in an offer for like 280. It had been sitting on the market for a while. My realtor, it's a funny story actually. My realtor actually ended up showing this to me, and she walked out of there and she said, "I'm not going to let you buy this property." And I said, "What do you mean? I love this property. I think there's a lot of potential in it." And she said, "No, I'm not going to let you buy this. It's a money pit." And I said, "Okay, well, if you don't believe in this one, show me one you do believe in." And she showed me 4 other properties after that. None of them even compared to even close. And so I went ahead and just fired her. I had another realtor that was contacting me from my college, and he was brand new to business, and I knew that he would do just about anything to get that sale done. So I said, "Hey, here's the property I want. Here's the offer. Go ahead and put it in." And that's what he did. And so I put in an offer. I think I ended up getting that property for right around 285. And it was a 3-bedroom, 3-bedroom, and a 2-bedroom. So it was a
Triplex?
triple decker. Yep, it's
Okay.
a triplex. They're all on top of each other, stacked. And that thing was bringing in like $31,000 a year, right? So not that great. But on paper, it wasn't that bad. But I knew that after I went ahead and tweaked those rents, like I learned, I knew that I could go ahead and really boost it. So that's what I did. I got started. I didn't know nothing about being a landlord. This guy had the rents at, they were at 625, and 525. And,
Mm-hmm.
or some, I can't remember the exact numbers. It came out to 31 grand. And so what I did was I actually ended up taking it, and I ended up actually doubling the rent. So
Oh,
I found
wow.
out that the first floor could be a 4-bedroom. It was actually a 4-bedroom. They were treating it as a 3-bedroom, and the people on the bottom floor were also Section 8. And I knew that I could go ahead and call them and see if they had a Section 8 voucher for 4 bedrooms, and they did. So I instantly changed that to a 4-bedroom. So instantly the rent went up. The second floor, I raised their rent, not to market, but just a little bit lower because they'd been there for a while. And then the top floor, they moved out instantly, right? So I told the guy that owned the building before me, he included all of the utilities. So he was paying everybody's utilities, electricity, water, sewer, obviously, and then the heat. He was
No.
paying he was paying all of the friggin' utilities for the building. He was getting slammed,
Did
right?
you
He
sub-meter,
was,
or what did you do?
so they were already metered out. That was the crazy thing. Everything was already metered out. Natural gas, all the electrical was already metered out. They had all their own gas meters. They had all their own heating systems. He was just paying for the heat. He was paying for everything, right?
That's crazy.
Yeah. So yeah, it was crazy, man. I had never seen anything like it. And so I told everybody, I was like, I'm not paying for your utilities anymore. And then the top floor ended up moving out. Their rent was literally 525 with everything included. And I remember that one for a fact. And so they moved out, and I was super nervous, but I ended up listing that property for, I doubled it. So it was at $1,100. And yeah, I put it at 1,100, and
Wow.
no shit. Within 2 hours, I had 17 people call me.
No way.
Yeah, man. So I'm instantly, and this was my first experience with an empty unit.
That's a good
And
first experience.
yeah, and I did nothing. I did nothing to the unit. I just went in there, and I think I did some like very light painting, and I literally doubled the rent on it. And I had 17 people call me in 2 hours, and I was blown away. I had like this real like Manila folder that was full of just names and numbers that were calling me. I was overwhelmed to sell, and I showed it like 3 times, and I was like, "Yeah, you're it."
Yeah, make
Yeah.
it easier on me. Yeah. Oh
Yeah,
my
yeah.
God.
So that was my first deal, man. And within 4 months, I had turned that property around, and I doubled the income on the whole building. It was bringing in over 60 grand a year.
Now, did you also
Within
get, what did you do with the other, besides, did you increase the rents for all the other units, or did
Yeah, I did.
the
I
residents move
increased
out,
all the
or?
rents. Yep, yep. I increased all the rents. The first 2 floors ended up staying, and the bottom floor is still there, honestly.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, no, her rents now is 2250, and it
What?
started out as $1,700. Yeah, so her rents. When I first bought that property, I think her rent was, I want to say it was like 850. I know the first 2 floors were very similar. I
Wow.
think it was 850, and so it went from 850 all the way to, what it is today, which is 2250. Yes, pretty
That's
crazy.
insane. That's because you said
Yeah,
that was like in 2017. That's like a 3 year, that's a
yeah.
crazy 3 year turnaround, man.
Yeah, man. And one thing I wasn't expecting was the appreciation of those properties too. Just went through the roof. That
Oh, wow.
that
You
same
picked a good
building
spot.
today, yeah, dude. That same building today is worth over 500 grand. So
Wow.
it's, yeah, dude.
Literally
It's
like
friggin'
almost.
insane. Yeah.
That's perfect. So what it now, I like the whole tactical approach. Where are you at today with that? Are you looking to pay it out? Are you looking to refi? Are you looking to take some of the equity out and put it to work? I guess you at with your mindset as to, because a lot of investors have different kind of goals. I'm just curious as
Yeah.
to that one
Yeah.
project. How
So
does
I
that look
bought
like
that
for you?
first. I bought that first property. So my first 2 properties I bought as investment loans. A lot of people ask me, "Oh, did you do it with an FHA? Owner occupied?" I bought my first one with just a regular conventional investment loan.
Mhm.
So I had to put down that 25%, and it was like $76,000. Super nervous about it. I'd never even,
Absolutely.
like, dude, I was so nervous about it, and the bank teller could even tell, because, like, my parents don't make much money at all, and all of a sudden I'm sitting here holding a check for $76,000, and it was a wild time for me. But the second I went ahead and paid for that property, dude, something lit inside of me where I'm like, oh my god, yeah,
Kind of like a
this,
switch, right?
yeah,
Plug.
man. I
Plug.
literally just that literally just switched, and I was like, oh my god, I need to do this again,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
And yeah,
I
and
think
so
that's fascinating because you're talking about kind of like it was almost like the reason why I'm glad you said that, Tyler, is because I don't hear that often, right? I hear people say, "Oh yeah, I always knew I wanted to invest," but I think it goes without saying, there's something real about not being able to let go of money. A lot of people do that because they're not
yeah,
used to it. A lot of people have savings, a lot of people have 401ks. And I think hearing that from you as someone who is a practitioner who actually experienced that, I think people need to hear that. I'm glad you're sharing that with us today, because it's a
yeah.
breath of
No,
fresh air. I haven't
dude,
heard
I
that.
deal with students every day
Yeah.
that are just holding on to this cash, and I understand it, man.
Yeah.
Having cash on hand in the bank is great. It's a comfortability thing. But one thing I tell I work with a lot of younger people, and one thing I tell them is, hey, listen, you are so young. You can go ahead and blow this money on this, and I guarantee if you put it in real estate, it's better. But you could just absolutely lose this money, and you're going to gain
Do
it
it all
back.
over again. Yeah.
And I said, that's why I always preach, like, you need to put your money in real estate or cash producing assets, and just assets in general. Don't be going out there buying, vacations and all this other stuff. You need to be putting it in cash producing assets. And
Yeah.
that's what I live and die on, man. So, I'm constantly pushing that, because so many people have that issue of, they want to hold on to their cash, they want to
Mhm.
hoard their cash,
Yeah.
and I just don't see the good in doing that, especially if you're younger. If you're a younger person under 50 years old,
Mhm.
you need to be putting that money out there into the world, and letting that money bring back more money, and then going ahead and redoing it. But To answer your question, I haven't pulled out any money out of any of those properties yet. They're sitting there with at least 25%. And I do that because I wouldn't want to take any more than 80%
Yeah.
from those properties. And I've heard horror stories from people over leveraging buildings, and I'm not trying to be one of those guys that just tries to get super greedy. So, the cash flow on my properties, like that property I was telling you about, dude, that first property brings me in at least $3,600 a month in cash flow. After all expenses are paid, it makes $3,600 a month. And so, making that kind of cash flow on a 3-unit, it comes back quick. I've
That's
already
crazy.
paid myself back for that first initial investment.
Mhm.
And so, as long as you have in buying the right properties and buying properties on cash flow, because that's how I personally buy properties. I don't buy properties on appreciation. I buy them on cash flow. How much cash flow can that puppy get? And that's how I buy. So in terms of like the recession, whatever, I don't care about that. I don't
Yeah.
care about the value of my properties. They can go to zero. I'm
As
in
long
for the
as it's
long
cash
run.
flowing, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, man, I'm in there for the long run. And when you're in it for the long run, you don't really need to worry about that stuff.
That's fascinating, man. Look, I'm actually real stoked because I don't always have, this is actually what I try to do here in the lab, right? Like uh I will call myself, well, before you told me about the opportunist thing, I like it. I'm like, I like that, man. I'm gonna start rolling with that. But I consider myself an opportunist as well. It's funny you say that because you name it, I've done it. Like I've
Mm-hmm.
literally, like you talk about jobs, man. Like seriously, you name it. Like
Dude,
ask me, I'll do it. Like working with a contractor, lawn care, like everything. Like
yeah.
I've done it as well, man. Like oil
I
fields, like
had a
I've
funny
had my
story.
stint of
One
that.
time I told my buddy that. One
Yeah.
time I told my buddy that from college, and he goes, "All right." He goes, "What about burying something?" And he was just joking, right? And I go, "Done it."
Bearing?
He was like, "Wait, wait, wait, wait." And I go, "Dead dog, man. I got paid $400 to bury a dead dog once. No joke."
Wow.
Yeah, dude, it's kind of messed up, but I was like,
Yeah.
that's where I was at.
No,
I've
it's
done just about
well,
anything.
but see, okay, so I like this topic because then we were talking about this offline a little bit, like money. Okay, let's talk about money for a second because I'm gonna tie it back to your real estate investing and sales strategy as well because I know you're a realtor,
Yeah.
which is always refreshing. But let's talk about this. We're right in the middle of the foundation of what we're talking about here. Okay, so you had to have made money. I know you talk about people not, wanting to spend money, but they got to get money first. What is your
Yeah.
take on this? And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because you're an opportunist. So you see ways that there is to make money. Now, some people go into real estate to maybe, sell real estate to make
Mm-hmm.
money. We've talked about this. I know you and I both use that avenue, but considering that you've done things online, you've sold things on Craigslist, you've done a lot. Would you say it's important for people to get their money right first to then invest in real estate, or
Totally.
would you invest, or would you actually say that actually no, get into the real estate space so you can understand it and then because I really want to go back on that. What is your take on that? Should someone get their money right first before they invest in real estate, or someone just be in the real estate space to say they're in it?
When you say money, right, what do you mean by that exactly? Like,
Okay,
do
so
you
you
mean get
had
money, or do you mean like, you know, have their finances in play and their expenses in check?
I think where I'm getting at with this, and thanks for helping me clear that up, is getting money to invest. Right,
Okay.
you evidently had to have your money. Like you, not a lot of people. You'd be surprised. Okay, so apparently most people, I think it's like the average American maybe has like I think 10,000 like lying around or something. Not even the average. I think that's like a luxury.
Yeah,
So
no,
you
that's
had
that's
70.
well above average.
Right, you had $76,000. I want to focus on that for a second because I think that's important that you had created value or created an exchange of your services to have enough capital to invest. How important is that? And I want to maybe hear your take on it. Is
I
real
think
estate
I think
one of
it's
them?
super important.
Yeah.
I genuinely think it's super important to have that money. But I'm not going to tell you that I haven't helped people get into real estate
Mhm.
that haven't had a ton of money, right? I just helped a 23-year-old kid buy his first 3-unit. That
Nice.
makes him over $3,000 a month now, and he got into that property with 12 grand,
Oh, that's beautiful.
right? So I'm not going to tell you that I don't push people towards that, because if you have enough money to go ahead and owner occupy a property, I'm going to push you towards it, because I think that getting that passive income behind you is going to make you work harder to go ahead and get the next one. But you obviously need money to be in real estate, right? You need money, unless you're wholesaling, which we do a lot of. Unless you're wholesaling, you are going to need that money to go ahead and invest in properties. Unless, of course, you're just really good at finding good deals. And if you want to go ahead and co-own those properties with somebody else, great. Like I had a 19-year-old student of mine that brought me a property, a 3-unit. I made him a co-owner of the property just for bringing it to me.
Nice.
So do you need money to actually invest in property? No. I've definitely done other things, but at the same time, like that property that the 19-year-old brought to me, we did a subject to deal on that. And at the end of the day, the owner of the property actually handed us cash because he went ahead and prorated the rents. And then at literally like the next couple days, we went ahead and got the full rents for the next month. So
Nice.
He literally handed us cash with the security deposits and prorated rents to take over his property. And so there are ways to go ahead and get into real estate without that money. And I genuinely believe those things, because there's people that hear that all the time, right? We hear that all the time. Oh, get in money, no cash down. Like, yeah, cool. But those things are actually real. A lot of people take them as a scam, but they're real. And I can say that because I've freaking done them. And they work really well. And, very similar property, on that one. I did a lot of very interesting properties in 2019. Like they weren't like cookie cutter. They were all very interesting. Like that subject to deal, very similar situation as the first one I was in. The rents were $850 and $625. And we went ahead and literally doubled the rents in 3 months. And yeah, dude, it was absolutely insane. But that was the subject to deal. We got that with no money. So all of a sudden, you can get those properties. But I think that unless you know about money and unless you're a business person, you're going to have a little bit of a struggle time with that, which is a good thing. I love struggle. But at the same time, I do think it's important to be able to put in your own cash into the deal, because it's going to make you care about it a little more.
Absolutely.
So getting your money, and I understand that there's a lot of people that can't jump into real estate like I did. But at the same time, there's a lot of people that don't think that they can. And then all of a sudden, if I taught them how to go ahead and start a business, all of a sudden they're buying a property just like I did, because they started working for themselves and they saw opportunities. And that's one thing about me is, as an opportunist, I see literally all kinds of opportunities in the world, and I have a really hard time keeping myself off of them, right?
Yeah.
And literally I'd say probably a huge part of my day is going ahead and trying to stay away from opportunities that I'm seeing throughout the day.
Why is that important? I want you to bring that one home.
Because I literally do a lot of different things right now. I have multiple different companies. This is one of them, Empire Capital.
Nice.
It's a nationwide private money lender, right? And so we are doing so many different things. And at the same time, you can do those things if you have the right people together. But for the most part, I'm just running these things with myself and one other partner. And, it's just, I had to make him a partner because I didn't have the time to do these companies. Right. I had my properties that I own outright by myself. And so in that regard, I was having a really hard time spreading myself out too thin, especially when I became a realtor. And so, I need to, in spreading yourself out too thin is a real thing. You can burn yourself out if you go too hard. And that's what I did in 2019. I really cranked myself up with that flip the switch stuff. I did more than I've ever done in my entire life. And I don't regret it one bit, but at the same time, I definitely realized some things the hard way, such as you need help, you need leverage.
Yes. What does that mean for you, Tyler? Leverage? Because that's one of my favorite topics that I talk about. And I know you mentioned a partner, but what else does that mean for you, leverage?
Leverage the one thing with me, leverage with people has always been a really difficult thing for me. I love people. I love, cranking people up. But I don't believe in employees. Like I believe in because I grew up in an employee household where I saw, my parents not doing, they'd come home and they'd talk about, all the stuff that they didn't do during the day, but they still got paid for it. And so it's kind of like what I grew up in. But so I am strongly aggressive on productivity based pay. Like, I think that if you, and that's just because that's how I want to be paid.
Yeah.
So I genuinely believe that I want to surround myself with people like that, because that's how you build a really big business, is getting people that are all money hungry, hungry for growth and hungry for all of these things, to really grow a big business. And that's kind of, it's a hard play, but growth and leverage through people has always been a difficult thing for me. And that's one thing I had to learn the hard way, with that whole 2019 thing. I learned that the hard way, that you need people, right? You need people. Leverage through money is also a really difficult thing for me. Leverage in general. I've always been the type of person that think I can do everything, right? I think I can do literally everything. And me tapping myself out in 2019 because I was doing so many different things. And with Flip the Switch, every opportunity that came to my table, I took in 2019. Like, for instance, I had 9 houses under contract at the end of the year. I had 9 houses under contract as a realtor. I had 8 going under contract for the next month. So you, as knowing as a realtor, you know how much work that is, right? Because you're dealing with all the stuff at the end of this at the end of this month, but you're also dealing with next month. So there's a lot of work there. I was also putting 3 of my properties through lead abatement, which is a whole other job amongst itself. And then all of a sudden, I had these other companies that were also firing on all cylinders. The wholesale, we signed 38 deals that month through wholesaling. Yeah, dude, and they're all short sales. So it was just
okay. So hold up. There's how many people were involved when you say we? Because there's just no way. Like,
just myself and Andrew. Andrew Bailey is my partner. Yeah, and
between 2 people, that's a lot of work, man.
Yeah, man, and so he was doing the other company's wholesale network and Empire Capital, and he was even having to help me out with my personal units because I was just so swamped. But all of that stuff we were doing that month, all of a sudden, and this is just to explain what I mean when I say that, you can't constantly have your eyes on everything. After everything that I was doing, dude, I had 3 flips come across my desk. The numbers were absolutely flawless. I couldn't not take them. Like, they were that good of a deal. And I looked at Andrew. I was like, dude, I can't do this. Like, we cannot do this. We cannot take these on. And he goes, let's do it. He's 20 years old. He's like, let's do it. And so I was like, let's do it. Flip the switch, baby. That's what we preach. That's where we're going to live. And so I ended up buying those properties, and flipping all of them all at the same time. I bought them. Another stressor on top of that, I bought them with my own money. So I was out of pocket on all 3 of them. So it was just a wild time. And so, you can do a lot more than you think you can do. But at the same time, leverage is very important. And that's kind of like where we were going with that.
So today, is it still you and Andrew, or have you kind of grown it to having more folks involved?
Yeah, so in the day-to-day stuff, it's just me and Andrew. But for our companies like Empire Capital, we have, I think it's 6, or we're adding people every day to that. So I think it's 6 or 7 brokers now. We just started adding brokers to that last month.
And what is that exactly? Just so everybody who's listening can maybe kind of check it out, or if there's anything.
Yeah. So Empire Capital is a private money lender. And we're just a private money lender, and we're all over the country. So I think there's only 6 states we don't do business in. And so your house flippers, your investors that are buying big properties, they're trying to value add. Like, we just had a 420 unit in Texas that was like 55 million, stuff like that. So stuff that you can't get a loan from a bank, we go ahead in there and we take care of it. And they're just short bridge loans. So, 6 months to 3 years, and we get you set up on that. And then you go ahead and refi it and cash out. So that's what we help people do.
Wow.
And we also have 30-year loans. So if you can't, we work with people that can't technically get, or we work with people that can't technically get stuff from the bank, or we work with people that the properties can't get lending from the bank. So
Mm.
those are the things we work with, and Andrew runs that, and then we have the wholesale network that we have other people with. So we just have like, again, I don't believe in employees, so we have just like salesmen kind of
Yeah,
that just find properties, and then we go ahead and bring them in house and we source them out, get them taken care of. Um, so yeah, man,
that's
it's just
fascinating.
Andrew and I. Yeah, it's Andrew and I that are just kind of like masterminding these businesses, but then we have little like salesmen out there that are selling our product, finding product for us,
Yeah.
and then we bring it in house. But we're working on a brick and mortar right now that I bought. The property I bought, commercial property, my first commercial property that I bought last year in
Okay.
2019. We're
Good for
moving
you.
everything into that property.
Good for
Yeah.
you, man. Good for you. That's awesome. And I'd love to, down the road we'll talk a little bit more. If there's so many different funnels or I guess silos that I'd want to get into, but we could be on here all day. So
Oh, totally.
I'll save it for another day for sure. As for when it comes to the Empire Capital, I think that's really fascinating.
Dude, yeah,
But
no, we definitely got to talk about it. It's
yeah,
really cool, and like for instance, you talking to you right now, we can make you a broker tomorrow if you wanted to.
that's
So it's
crazy.
like it's very cool in that regard, where like
Yeah.
uh, you have a really good network of people in real
Mhm.
estate.
Yeah.
Now, what's to say you can't be their plug for lending all of a
Yeah.
sudden, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
We could do that for you in literally a day. Like you could get brokered with us in no time. And there's no, I mean, we have a training course, but
Mhm.
other than that, there's no real training. It's just, we get you set right up, and now all of a sudden you're making money on, helping your friends and helping your clients, your customers. So it's really cool, dude.
Absolutely, man. I'll definitely make sure that we'll definitely catch up offline for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely want to switch back into your mindset and then kind of loop it all together. What do you think is the just kind of going back into the core? What do you think is the biggest misconception that people face in opportunities? Because it seems you've tackled a lot, so I'll name that as opportunities. A lot of our listeners, it's going to be business or it's going to be real estate, but for you, what do you think it is going into a new opportunity? What is the misconception?
Fake fear, dude. Fear. Fear is something that you should not be worried about. And find it way too often where people, and I call it fake fear because it's really not even actually there.
Yeah.
You just work it into your own mind. And when you get consumed by that, it's really hard to get away from. And so, and that's why I started Flip the Switch, because
Yeah.
Flip the Switch is meant to go ahead and work you through that fake fear and just let you do it. Right. So those three flips that I had that came across my desk, I looked at the numbers, like they were literally a win-win. I couldn't lose. Like I literally bought a property for 30 grand and I put 20 grand into it. It's going to sell for 170. Like that's a
Yeah.
win-win that I can't lose on that property. Right.
Absolutely.
And so at that point, just getting in situations like that where you're almost talking yourself out of it, even though you don't really know all the steps, right? And you're just trying to talk yourself out of it. And I always explain it like your brain is literally designed to keep you safe, right? It's to keep you
Absolutely.
comfortable, to keep you safe. And that's what it's designed for, man. And so like every single day, and you can say this in your own life, no matter if you don't do any business at all, just look at your own life. When you wake up in the morning, right? Really super early in the morning,
Yeah.
what's your first thought? Your first thought is go back to friggin' sleep,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And, and
Protection.
and even if your first thought is not go back to sleep, wait fucking 5 seconds, and I guarantee you that thought creeps back into your mind. I
Absolutely.
guarantee it. And it's because your brain is designed to keep you close and comfortable, and it's to keep you safe, right? So
Yeah.
getting over that whole initial like fake fear and pushing past it and flipping the switch on that's the thing that I think that is like the huge misconception in anything, right? In anything in life, not just real estate, not just business, but literally your entire life is just that fear you get when you're thinking about something that you want to do, and you don't actually end up doing them, because every single one of us has these things in our lives every single day that we want to do, but we never do them. Why is that? We literally talk ourselves out of the things that we even tell ourselves we want to do.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if you probably follow me on Instagram, but definitely go look at my last post, because it's about, we live two lives, man. We live the life that we put up as a wall into perception of everybody else. And then we have this other self of ours that always lives in the shadows of this person.
Yeah.
And so, and we always forget this person. That's who we really are. And so we always forget them. We forget how to control them. And in situations like that, where we know we need to do that thing, we're not going to do it because we don't even control this person anymore. So
That's deep, man. I'm glad you brought that, because I think I believe personal development and knowing your self-awareness is a true reflection of what you're putting outwards into the universe, which obviously you're fully turned up, as I should say, with the switch being on. But obviously it stems from really knowing yourself and knowing what you're good at and knowing what drives you, etc. You mentioned this, and I didn't get a chance to tap into it. You talked about the kids that you help, and I'm wondering if I guess I want to go back on that. What is that? Is that more or less coaching, and or what is it exactly that you're, and you did focus on the youth, which I think is really key, and because I think that's I would agree that that's where the foundation really starts. So
yeah,
talk a little bit about that. Is that something that you've been actively doing, or something that kind of just
yeah,
so more or less
yeah.
just
No,
happens? Yeah.
it's something that I've been doing for a long time. I've been a motivational speaker for like 7 years now,
Nice.
and it's something I'm really passionate about, because
Mm.
I've always been an intellectual, where I've always watched my environment, I've watched my friends, and I've always been the type of guy that sees where everybody else is going, and then
Yeah.
I go the other way, right? So,
Yeah.
in high school, I saw everybody going towards partying, and I went the other way towards business.
Yeah.
And so, that's how I've always been. And so, I worked myself through college and through, all of that stuff, and I created an actual empire for myself, by building a personal brand, right? And in high school, I learned what personal brand means, and that's where I really started to build it. And so, and I bring that up because, that's where it really started for me, was I wanted to build something. I wanted to build the brand of Tyler Hall to another
Mm.
level. And so, getting to that point in high school, that's where I really wanted to go. I knew where I wanted to go. I knew where I wanted to be. And, I also realized that all of my friends, weren't doing the things that I was doing. And I always remember asking them, like, why? And they'd be like, dude, I'm too young. I'll do that when I get older.
Yeah.
And that kind of followed along suit the entire time. And even after I graduated college, right, I still started to see my friends still struggling to pay their college expenses, still struggling to pay for rent, still struggling to like eat, so and I saw these things, and I started to realize, like, kids do not start younger. Like, they should be starting in high school, and they don't start there because they think that they have to wait until the older generations
Yeah.
happen, right? So
Yeah.
they constantly push that success off to their older self. And what they don't realize is that they're building their older self right now. And so if you don't build yourself right now, the older self of you is not going to be able to take care of it either, right?
Absolutely.
So, just pushing and just stopping these minds of these kids, and stop saying, you can do this now. You do not have to wait. And I know you've probably talked to a lot of people, right? And when you ask them why they aren't in real estate yet, oh yeah, no, it's in the 5-year plan. If that's something you want to do, why the fuck don't you do it right now?
Yeah. Why
Excuse my
wait?
language, but
Why
genuinely,
wait?
why not? Why
Yeah.
wait, man? And that's kind of like what I'm on a kick on. And I use the younger generations, because when I was younger, I didn't have anybody pushing me, man. Like, I was just
Yeah.
pushing myself. And I wish I had somebody sitting there saying, like, yo, let's go. You do not need college. You don't need this. You have an entrepreneurial mind. We need to get you into doing more things, right, of the world. And I wish I had that guidance. Even when I got into real estate, I asked a bunch of people to help me. No one helped me. So I just, me being stubborn, I was just like, I'll figure it out on my own.
Yeah.
And I didn't want that's why I'm so passionate about it now, is because I've struggled through everything I've ever done. Like, I have struggled through it. And that's how I've learned so quickly, is because I just put myself in the shit and I found myself out.
Yeah.
And I don't want the younger generations to have to go through that. And I take pride in it, man. I take pride in taking, a 19-year-old kid getting his first building before he turns 20 and getting himself financial freedom,
Yeah.
and him looking at his parents and saying, I just bought that $300,000 property, and them say, how the hell did you do that? You're only 19. So
It's a
I
taste.
take pride in that, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I take pride in that.
You're
And
you're
that's,
you're
yeah,
you're flipping the switch early. Don't mind if I do. I'm connecting all the
totally.
dots here, and honestly, that's the reason why I asked, because I think success leaves trails, and you have trails left for us all over the place. Seriously, from the time that you had to make, you faced adversity early on, and you had to literally switch again, and yeah, your back was against the wall, to right now tying it full circle. This is why
Yeah,
you resonated with helping kids, and I appreciate that you sharing with that. One thing I will ask too, and this is why I think it's a great segue, is what is the best advice that you think you've given to your kids, and you've seen, and when I say your kids, obviously it's the kids that you're mentoring, and when I say that, I think, what is the best advice that you feel has resonated with them based on what you tell them in the feedback, or maybe how they react
yeah.
differently? Is there something that maybe jumps out at you that you've seen a great return on, or reaction?
Yeah, man. And it's just that one. There's a couple different things. I try to teach them lessons literally in everything, even though they don't really realize that I'm
Yeah,
teaching them something.
you're planting the
I'm
seed.
constantly, yeah, man. I'm
Yeah,
constantly, like, we had a retreat where I was just constantly teaching them stuff. And at the end of it, they were like, dude, I didn't even realize you were doing that, but now I understand it. And it's like,
yeah,
yeah, man, that's why. And so, but one thing that I really genuinely feel like a lot of them just like hit like this, aha moment, is when they start to see other kids of like them, that come from nothing, that don't have a rich family. When they start to see other fucking people their age start doing things and actually taking action, that really lights them up. And then when I sit with them, they say, well, I don't know, maybe when I do this in a couple of years. And when I sit there and I say, why wait? Okay, do this now.
yeah.
No one's telling you that you can't do this except for you. You need to do it now.
Man,
Stop
so
waiting.
glad you're saying this.
So when I say that to them, it really starts to like dig into them, like, dude, you know what? You're right. Like, why am I waiting? I don't need to get older to do this shit. I can do it now.
Yeah,
And when you put belief into someone like that, that's
yeah,
younger, that believes that they have to wait till they get older to do shit, um, you know, Andrew makes more money than his parents right now, right? And he's
yeah.
20 years old, right? So it's just, yeah, man. He was literally an electrician. He came to me as an electrician. He was 19. He's a completely cool story, but he came to me when he was 19. He saw that I was, I was in Ty Lopez's garage, and he was like his mentor
Yeah.
at the time. So he reached out to me and he's like, dude, I got to meet you. And I just found like this huge amount of, motivation in this kid. And he reminded me of myself when I was younger. And, he had nobody to push him. Like, I didn't have anybody to push me. And I was just like, dude, I can't let this kid slip. So, I took him right under my wing. I literally moved him into my house with me. And, and he just got started, man. And he literally was an electrician. And one day I looked at him, I was like, dude, quit your job, bro. And because he would work all day long as an electrician, pack everything up, come to wherever we were meeting that day, and do real estate for the rest of the night. Kid was crazy, man. He wasn't sleeping at all. He was like eating very little, and he was just hungry, man. And just get it. And I told him that same thing. It's like, you don't have to wait, man. You can do this now. And and he just got started, dude. And he was able to drop out of being an electrician to making six figures in his first year. So
That's
he's
amazing.
done really well for himself. He makes more money than his parents. Like, everybody's confused by him. And the kid's literally known all over the country, bro. Like,
Mhm,
because Empire Capital's like nationwide.
mhm.
Like, people know this kid all over the country, and he's talking to $1 billion hedge funds with the Empire Capital. Like, people are calling him. He's 20 years old. People are calling him for business.
Dude,
And
that
it's,
honestly,
dude, it
that's
makes me
kudos
so
to you,
happy,
man.
man.
That gives me the
Yeah.
goosebumps, and that's kudos to you for. I really resonate with you being able to see some of yourself in somebody else
Yeah.
and filling that gap. And I think that says a lot about yourself, man. And I appreciate that, man. I really do. I
Yeah.
respect that.
Yeah, man.
So, so that's really cool. So let's segue into the core rapid fire questions. I think that's was like to see who the person is behind. Do you have a favorite book?
Favorite book, the only book I ever, obviously the Bible,
Mhm.
right? But other than that, the only book that I ever, it's kind of funny. Books are funny for me. Um, 2019, it made it a point to not read a single book. Um, and I did that because I wanted to tune out the world and hear my own thoughts and my own
Mm,
feelings and my own, perceptions. Because I think that people read a little too much. So in the world, they don't actually see the world teaching them things and speaking to them. So because they constantly read it in a book, so they tune their own in tuner. They tune that out and they tune into the books. And I really wanted to kind of prove that and say, flip the switch. I can tune into the world, learn things from the world on my own. So I haven't read a whole lot, and I
mhm.
found that that's just because I like to go ahead and really be in tune with myself genuinely. And learn a lot of these principles, because these principles that are in these books, man, I've read a couple of them. They're all the same, right? And
They
these
are.
people learn these things from experience, right? From experiencing them. So the only book that I ever really like push people to read is Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Absolutely.
Um, Rich Dad Poor Dad, and another one that I read in high school. So I read that in high school, and another one I read in high school was The Secret. And so those two books just allowed me to think differently,
Yeah.
right? And I always say Rich Dad Poor Dad because it teaches you why investing in real estate is important. Because a lot of people are like, "Oh yeah, I want to invest in real estate." Okay, but why? And that's one thing that Rich Dad Poor Dad does, is it teaches you why you need to be thinking like that
Yeah.
instead of just saying, yeah, I want to do it. So I'd say those two books, just because they make you think of the world differently and make you think differently.
Absolutely, man. Those are some pillars, gems, and that's a refreshing answer. I don't hear that too often. But I
Yeah,
think
I know.
it's a great segue into the next question. What do you think is the best habit that serves you every day?
Flip the switch.
My man, smart
Flip
man.
the
That's
switch, dude. I
yes, yeah,
literally little stuff, big stuff, middle stuff, right? It starts with the little stuff. You have to always start yourself with the little stuff. And it just like when you start to say to yourself, flip the switch, and you start to get the things done that you really genuinely want to do,
yeah,
right? Because a lot of people don't, man. They say they want to do these things during the day and they don't do them, right?
yeah.
And in the background, you start to make excuses why you didn't get them done. And in the background, you start to actually resent yourself. If you
Mm,
genuinely dig in and you start to think of yourself how you think of yourself in the end of the day when you didn't do all the shit you needed to do, if you really dig into yourself and you really analyze it, you start to resent yourself day in and day out, and it starts to become a really big thing.
yeah,
Until all of a sudden you're like, shit, why am I depressed? And it's because you're not doing the shit you said you wanted to do.
mm,
Um, so, I challenge everybody listening to this, flip the switch every single day. If you need to, go to our friggin' website, ifliptheswitch.com, and get yourself some merch, like
yeah.
get yourself like a t-shirt that says flip the switch on it so that you remember yourself. You need to be doing that every day, because I guarantee you, you start to do the things that you say you're going to do every day, and your whole world's going to light up,
Yeah,
man.
yeah,
It's literally, you
and
feel a lot different.
I'm so glad you say that, and because this is one of the things I write down almost everything that I that I do and that I say I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
do, that I project that I'm gonna do. And one of the things, I get a lot of people try to do it with me, because I surround myself with like-minded people, and I'll have these conversations. I'll be like, if you don't do what you say you're going to do, and you know that it's important to do it, do you really want it? And then if you still don't do it, and you know that it's important, then you got to look at yourself in the mirror and
Right.
identify, is it really that important to you, right? Or is it just, or maybe to your point, did you just read it somewhere that it is important? Like,
Yeah.
what is it? You got to
Yeah.
dig deep,
Yeah.
right? So I'm glad you touched on that, because I think that's important. But rapid fire questions, man. I love talking about this stuff. Let's get into the next one. It's what's the best tool that helps you excel throughout your day? It could be an application, it could be anything.
Best tool.
Yeah.
Oh man. Um, the best tool that I use is obviously my cell phone.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously I do everything with that, but I'm trying to think of something better that everybody else can use. One thing that I stumbled upon just recently is Zillow. I mean, not Zillow. Trello.
Trello,
What
yes, that's
Trello
good.
is?
Absolutely, man. You're talking to the
Trello is really
systems man.
great, and
Yeah.
so we started using that a lot more to just keep our stuff organized because we
Yeah.
do a lot of different things.
Yeah.
So to keep those clients, so I went through all of 2019 without a CRM system.
Hmm.
So obviously this year I was like, okay, I can't do that again. You know, I'm a realtor. I do a lot of different things. I need to keep them organized.
Yeah.
So I'd say, Trello, and then I do have another CRM system that I use, but
Yeah.
both of those things, I'd say they're very useful. But for the number one thing, I am going to say my cell phone, and that a lot of people would say that, but
No, no,
like,
that's a good one.
dude,
Yeah, no.
I mean, genuinely, I mean, I've been doing business on my cell phone since I was a little kid. I was always the kid that everybody was like yelling at, like, dude, get off your phone. But it's like, screw you. I'm not talking. I'm not talking to some girl. I'm actually
Yeah,
making
making
money.
money.
So
Yeah,
shut the
yeah.
hell up. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not, tendering someone. I'm actually making money on my phone. So just
Yeah.
shut up. So,
Yeah.
like, I genuinely think that life would be a lot harder if I didn't have a cell phone.
Absolutely.
Um,
What a time to be alive for sure. For sure,
yeah,
man.
dude.
This tool
Think
is
about how
powerful.
think about how easy it makes business.
Yeah, I mean, think about how we connected. Just, hey, what's
Exactly.
up? Hey, go, cool, let's do it. I mean, do this on time. I've made a lot of business on this one, man.
Absolutely.
It's crazy. Um, cool. I want to talk. We didn't talk about leverage so much. So, one 300-unit apartment building or 3 apartments of 100 units. Which one do you pick?
One 300 apartment building.
Interesting.
I'm gonna go with that. And that's only because now I have 30 units of my own,
Mhm.
and it's a lot being spread out, right? So
Absolutely.
the one way I like to think of it is, you could have 10 units, and I explain this to some clients. You could have 10 units in a one building, or you could have 10 single family units,
Got it.
right? And it's like they're all scattered. You have 10 roofs, you have 10 boilers, you have all of the largest expenses in a property, and
Dispersed.
you have all of those things. And single family homes typically don't make that much cash flow either. So
Well,
you have,
except for Tyler's, because I don't know where he's investing, but we're gonna tune in
well, no,
later.
those are, yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
those are what
those are multis.
triplexes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
those are
multi.
multis. I
Okay, yeah,
don't have any single. Well,
you're
I
right.
can't say that because right now I actually do have some
Yeah,
single families, but I'm flipping them.
yeah,
So I do have some single families, but the cash flow is just not.
yeah. No,
It's not
one
there.
door. Yeah,
And then let's say the boiler breaks. There goes your cash flow for the whole year.
kills
You
it.
know, I know a lot of investors that say that they try to get to $100 a door, and it's like of cash flow, and I'm like, whoa. I think I would be like not okay with that.
Scraping. Yeah, no, you need more.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah, you need more.
definitely would go with a bigger unit. It's there. You could have property management on
Mhm.
premises. I just think that's something that I'm searching for right now is just a bigger unit, right, with way more units in it and not spread out as much. I just want one
Absolutely,
big facility. Yeah.
absolutely. Class A or Class B?
One thing about me is I don't even do that, right?
Yeah.
So I'm very difficult in my world is like I try things that I understand that process and I
Mhm.
understand that mindset.
Mhm.
But again, I go just based on cash flow,
That I like
just
that.
based on cash flow, man.
That's the next question, man. I was gonna say cash flow or equity.
Yeah, I just go based on cash flow.
There
Equity
you
is
go.
great.
Yeah.
I bought a lot of property with equity,
Mhm.
and I gained a lot of equity in 2019. A lot of equity, uh, and so I have bought properties on both, but I pretend like I really try to go ahead and buy cash flowing properties with equity. Like that property Andrew and I
Yeah.
bought,
Yeah.
that thing cash flows over $3,000 a month, and it also we walked into $150,000 of equity.
That's
So
real.
it's like
That's crazy.
I try to find both, and you find those off market. And that's kind of like, I like to go with both, but cash flow is way more important to me.
Love it. Love it. Self-manage or outsource?
Dude, that's one thing I'm right in this moment, literally in my life. I'm trying, if anybody has a good answer to this, please let me know. But, genuinely, I've worked for a couple third party management companies in my lifetime, and, they do some sketchy shit. And trust for me is not easy.
Yeah.
And so, it's really hard for me. Right now, I self-manage all of my units still. It's at a point where I know I need to get somebody else to do it. It's just a matter of, do I want to start a third party company, or do I want to go ahead and lend it out to somebody who does it? That's where I'm at right now. So I'm either going to start a third party and help other people, or I'm going to go ahead and push my stuff to a third party and let them just take care of everything.
Yeah, let me know. Let me know what you end up doing. I'll be curious. Offline, we'll talk about it.
Yeah, no, I'm leaning more towards like starting the third party and just finding somebody that is super hungry.
Kind of like
I
another
want,
Andrew, duplicate
yeah,
Andrew.
man, exactly. I
Duplicate.
want to find, dude. I wish I could duplicate
I
myself and
know.
him.
Yeah, I know. It's hard to find motors like that, man. Trust me.
Yeah, dude, it is, and so I'm leaning more towards um, building one and just finding somebody that wants to team up and actually take equity of the company
Yeah.
and run with it that way. But it's really hard, man. It's not easy. You got to find somebody that's smart, can actually still do some tinkering.
Yeah.
Finding somebody that can actually do some of these things on their own, so they're not outsourcing them to contractors that are going to charge you through the roof for replacing a toilet. So it's just really difficult.
Yeah.
But I'm leaning more towards starting that company.
You bet.
I've already got a name for it, so we'll see how it goes.
Flip the switch.
Cash flow management.
Oh, I love it. Love it.
Yeah.
I mean, flip the switch management, man. But yeah.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Let me hear this. I'm very curious to hear what your answer is for this. If you had one superpower in what you're currently doing, what would it be?
One superpower. That's a tough one. Got some tough questions here.
One
superpower that I would really love to have is to just be able to really touch people on a greater level, to be able to like see somebody face to face and to just know exactly what they want. However, to provide them with the most value.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'd really want to do. Right. And so like to walk up to somebody and see exactly how to provide them the most value and to be able to get it to them like that. That's the single on the whole planet. That's the one thing that I would really love to do. And I've trained myself my entire life to be able to do that, but I'm still not there.
I think we have a lot in common, man, and I think that's probably why you and I both had the Ty Lopez connection, because I know that's one of his big things too. Right? He's very good on he has this thing that he uses to how to read people and stuff, so which is really big, which is cool, man. If you were to describe as successful or and successful being impactful real estate investor or business operator or an opportunist like yourself in one word, which one would you pick?
Free.
Freedom.
Free.
I like that.
That's what I would go with. I think that's the main thing that we're all looking for, and to help other people achieve it, just freedom.
Nice. Let's go into our insider secrets real quick before we drop off. One thing I like to always talk about, you again, we talk about you being an opportunist, etc. What is an area right now that's capturing your attention in the marketplace? I know there's a lot going on right now, but you're investing, you're a realtor. I'm big on looking out for opportunities. What is it you see? Is it property management? Is it a specific area to invest in your current marketplace? Gaps that you're seeing as a realtor? What is it that you're seeing maybe that's out there that maybe folks don't see because they're too busy tuning out while you're tuning in? Plug.
So a big thing is just thinking of yourself as more than what you actually are. And though I've taught this class to I mean, I actually teach it to Keller Williams
Mm-hmm.
franchises, is, just being more than what you are. So for instance, a lot of realtors just think of themselves as a realtor,
Yeah.
right? They do their realtor duties. They know what their duties are. They do them, and they try to do them really well. Whereas I always constantly think of myself outside of a box. I do not like to be boxed in. If you can't tell from this interview, I do not like to be put in a box.
Yeah.
And anytime someone tries to put me in a box, I find my way out, right?
Yeah.
So, being a realtor, okay, all of a sudden I'm a realtor. Bang. I've worked myself out of that being of a mold. And so, I constantly, in my 2019, I was constantly thinking myself as something more than a realtor.
Yeah.
And for instance, there was a point in time over my year where I got in a transaction. There was a really bad divorce, and these people, the husband destroyed the home, and they really wanted to sell it. The wife was super, like, they really wanted to get rid of it. They wanted to sell it, and they wanted to get top dollar for it. And the ARV comps in the area were right around 400 grand. But the condition that the house was in at the time was right around, they were only going to be able to get like right around 300 grand for it. So huge difference there, right?
Yeah.
So, the house didn't need a ton of work, but the presentation of it was everything in that area. So, I came to them, I said, if you do all of these things right to the house,
Mm-hmm.
if you fix them up, you will go ahead and you will get that 400 grand. And so they were like, well, that sounds really cool, but we don't know anybody, and we also don't have the means to do that ourselves. And I
Mm-hmm.
said, okay, great. And every other realtor, they said, can you go ahead and do that? Can you go ahead and find people that can do that? Can you get in touch with contractors, get us quotes? And I was like, yeah, absolutely, I'll do that for you. Now, every other realtor would have went home and they would have called every single contractor they knew to try to get that sale to go through for that $400,000 sale, right? They would have tried to get that $400,000 sale, took their commission on it, and ran, right? So they would have called up every single contractor. But me, I didn't think of myself as just a realtor. So I went home, and through another company and another entity that I have, I put in a bid for all the things that I had listed, and they went ahead and they accepted the bid. So the bid was 35,000 bucks, right?
Wow.
Yeah. So I put in a bid for 35 grand. This was just like painting and, redoing some, a couple things in a bathroom, little stuff. So Andrew and I, we went ahead and we did most of the work ourselves. And after all said and done, I had called up a couple contractors and upbid their bids, right? So I was basically a GC on this property, and I went ahead and after everything was paid for, I think it cost me like $5,000. So I made $30,000 before I made my $15,000 commission. So on that one property, I made 45 grand. And whereas every other realtor in the world would have made only 15. So just thinking of yourself outside the box. And I always
Yeah.
like to say it, I always like to say it like this, you can think of yourself as an app in the app store, or
Mm-hmm.
you can think of yourself as the entire app store,
Yeah.
right? With a ton of apps. And
Yeah.
that's how I like to think of myself. So when I meet somebody that needs something, I say, oh yeah, I can take care of that for you. Let me just
Yeah.
go ahead and give this person a call, or I can go ahead and do this like I can do this myself. So that's how I like to think of myself. And so that's one thing that I would really say on that question.
I like that, man. And I think that people need to hear that, because sometimes we're always looking for, I like how
Yeah,
every time I ask you a question, it's as if some people are looking for outward, but always goes back to inward, right? Which I appreciate that
absolutely.
about you, man. Now, speaking of inward and outward, let's talk about outward for a second. How important has social media been for your business?
Oh man, dude, social media, we live, die, and breathe on social media. That's the only reason why I was able to do what I was able to do as a realtor, as a company, as obviously as Empire Capital being nationwide. We're being contacted from people all over the nation, dude. Not just, we're literally having $1 billion hedge fund properties like property owners, all kinds of people reaching out to us from all over the country. And we do that through social media. And we wouldn't be able to survive without it. You know, on my personal business, like my realtor business, I'm on that, pumping it out all the time, trying, you know, just one post a day. You know, that's all it takes. And your name gets out there and your brand gets out there, which is the most important piece. You know, you're building a brand with everything you do. And building that brand should be the most prideful thing you do in your day. So yeah, social media is the only way that we really pump that out.
That's
so
awesome.
A huge part of every business I have.
Is there a specific avenue that, I know social media can mean a lot of things to people? Is there a specific avenue that you've been finding a lot of great return on, or you specifically use for, let's say, you mentioned Empire Capital?
LinkedIn. LinkedIn's crushing it right now. Yeah. LinkedIn's it's crushing it. Yeah. In all aspects, dude. Like I was able to talk to a couple Keller Williams agencies, like going into the actual market centers because of that. I've gotten a bunch of gigs from that for speaking. Mm-hmm. Every other business that I have runs off of that. We have like people coming to us from trying to figure out what we're up to. You know, I post something about what people say to me every day. I have people reach out to me all the time on social media saying, "Hey man, how can I get involved in what you're up to?" Mm-hmm. And so that's a really big part of why I do what I do, is to just teach other people, for one, but for two, for them to realize that they can do it too. You know, I'm nothing special. And I really want to portray that message. Is like, if I'm doing it, anybody over on the other side of the phone can do it too.
Absolutely. And I'm glad. Even this, I mean, all this is like a virtual stage. And I think to you being a speaker, I think you resonate that well with them and projecting your message. And I want to tie this all together. That's my goal here. What is the message that Tyler is trying to send? Because I know that's one thing you did send. You mentioned to me, and you had a message. What is that message you're trying to send out there to people?
I'd say self-actualization. I think that's a huge thing for me, is just seeing who you are on the inside, knowing that person, and then just taking advantage of everything that you say you want to do, and actually just go out and do it. You know, life as we know it, we need to be out there doing the things that we want to do. And I think there's way too many like unhappy people in the world because they're not doing the things that they want to do. And so, you know, that's just, in terms of my life, if you overlook my entire life, you can I kind of put a stamp on it as like, you know, I was brought down to like the lowest of points you could ever be brought down to. And just to turn things around and just become something. That's what I want to portray to other people, is that, you know, it doesn't matter what the hell happens to you. You can genuinely do anything that you want to do on this friggin' earth. We are limitless people. And just to spread that aura, man, is just like my mission, is just to spread that word of just like, you can friggin' do it. You know, you can do anything you want to do. And we've heard that since we were young, but it's become it's become such a overused term that people are just like, yeah, you know, I've heard that before, and they never actually do it.
Yeah, or tune into it, as you would say.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. They just don't tune into themselves ever. They just keep an eye on what's outside and what people are thinking of them. They never dig in and tune in to themselves and what they genuinely want. Mm-hmm. So I'd say that's a message. Yeah.
Absolutely. Right before you drop, man, I want to ask you the question I was like to ask is, what question do you wish I would have asked you that I didn't ask you?
That's also a tough one.
Did I get everything?
Yeah, dude, you did a really good job, man. You threw in some other questions in there that I didn't think you were going to ask, and we dug into some things that I didn't think we were going to touch on. So I think that you did a great job with that. Thank
you, man. And look, I know I just got a good sense that we're going to definitely collaborate sometime down the road. So, you know, basically, for me, it's, where can listeners find out more about you? They'll definitely find out about you through this platform, but my goal is for them to check you out, because I'm definitely all in right now. I'm flipping my switch as we were talking. Like, you got me all pumped up, and I really do appreciate that, because I think it's bigger than just being all pumped up, and it's about self-actualization, as you stated. Yeah. But where can we find out more about all the great things that you're doing, man, for the people?
And to speak on that, I
Yeah.
mean, your motivation, you know, when you have an influence, right? You get influenced when you talk to people, or when you see people, or when you see people
Yeah.
do things. You get influenced, and then what happens is once that influence is gone, it's like a ticking time bomb where all of a sudden you move back to where you were before.
Mhm.
Typically, every single person moves back to
Absolutely.
the old person that they were. They may have taken a couple things, but they never actually take action on them. So it's very important to keep those people that influenced you at some point in your life, in some point, some way. So, you know, to dig that into this, you know, anybody can go ahead and contact me at any point, anytime. Like I said, I have an open mind policy. I'm an open book. And so, you know, if you want to continue to have motivation, if this lit you up or anything like that, you know, you can always find me at Instagram is the best way to find me and follow me, because from Instagram you can pretty much see everything else that I do. So my personal Instagram is at Tyler Hall Empire. So it's
Oh,
Instagram,
we'll
and then
have
you
that
just
in
do,
the
yeah,
show notes for sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
at Tyler Hall Empire, and you can. I have a ton of highlights, and I have you know, a link tree that you can see everything that I'm up to. So you can follow everything I'm doing, because I do a lot of different things. So it's a good hub to stay in, and I constantly keep that updated as to what we have going on.
Good for you, likewise. And I think that's a good plug because that's a good tool everybody should be using. I mean, that's how Tyler and I made it to the lab here. Tyler joined us in the lab here because of that, and how we've done a lot of deals in business and partnerships with people from that. So I always encourage people to do that. But man, Tyler, you dropped some bombs. You were out here for what was supposed to be a nice our call. You stepped into the lab, but you over delivered, my friend. You turned that switch on for not just myself, but for the rest of the listeners, and that's what it's all about. That's why I actually do this, and you know, I benefit from it obviously as a host, but I mean, I'm about spreading the word, man, and you're crushing it, and I definitely will be connecting with you. And just like that, we are out. Damn.